This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Well, I hope your calendar is circled for February the 27th. Of course, we know the Ontario election is happening that day, and we're doing a number of debates here on Rogers TV. I'm Sam LaPrade. We're wanting you to get to know your candidates. Today is all about the riding of Nepean, and we have two candidates joining us today, Max Blair and Tyler Watt. Let's get to know them. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome. Hello. We're going to ask you to start with opening remarks, and we'll start with you, Max.
Thank you for the introduction, Sam. It's unfortunate that we're here so early in this election and millions of dollars in the hole just so that Doug Ford can try to distract you from his terrible record and the scandals that his government is going through, especially when I hear from my family and folks in our community about just how much harder life has become here in Ontario under Doug Ford. I hear from folks like my sister-in-law, who works as a nurse, about how our health systems are on life support. I hear from my cousin, who's a teacher, about how our schools are literally crumbling and students are being pushed out into portables. Or I talk with people like my dad, who's living with a disability, about how he's been legislated into poverty on our provincial support programs. This is why I'm running, because I know that my family is not alone in facing these problems. I'm happy to be here today to share the ideas of the NDP to address these problems and to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Max. Tyler, your opening remarks.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Sam. My name is Tyler Watt. I'm a registered nurse here in Nepean, and I have the honor of being the Ontario Liberal candidate for Nepean for the second time to run in this fun early winter election that we're having. I was born and raised in Barrhaven, and I'm the proud resident in Nepean right now. I work at a local hospital, and I see firsthand what is happening to our hospitals and healthcare system. Every single day that I'm working, I get to make a positive difference in the lives of my patients and their families, and it is that experience and drive that has led me to run for provincial politics, so I can bring that positive change to a community level and get to the provincial legislature where we can do something about it. I've been knocking on thousands of doors over the last several months, and the message is clear. Nepean is ready for change, and they want someone who will champion those causes for them at Queen's Park instead of the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We did invite all candidates running in this race. These are the only two candidates that took us up on our invitation. Let's get to those questions for you now. We'll start with you, Max. We know many parents are frustrated by the lack of school resources. The number of portables seem to be growing every single year. The lack of teachers and special educators. We know that parents are really feeling like this government is maybe failing the children of Ontario. What would you do to ensure that children feel like this education system is getting a passing grade?
Well, first I would like to acknowledge that you're entirely right. This government has failed on education. It's failed education workers, it's failed parents, and it's failed students. The first thing that we would do is we would begin by making sure that our schools are actually safe learning environments so that students can get the education that they need in safe and supportive classrooms. That means hiring more education workers, ECEs, educational assistants, tradespeople to help take care of our schools. It means making sure that we can lower class sizes and cap them so that students can learn in a conducive environment. And it means repairing the $22 billion backlog that we have on our schools so that our classrooms don't become just another portable while the school continues to have leaky roofs.
Thank you. Debate.
Well, thank you for that response. And, I've been meeting with education workers and parents and students to hear about the issues that they're facing right now. And it very much is that people are worried about having a meaningful and quality education in the classrooms. When I met with education workers, they're talking about the workplace violence that they're facing, the lack of support and resources that they have, right? They have to spend $1,000 to put a sign up in front of the schools to say that Ontario is investing in schools, but that these teachers don't have markers for their whiteboards, right? We can do better. The district school board here in Ottawa is running an $8 million deficit right now. When we have $1.9 billion to put beer and corner stores a year early, we certainly have the money to ensure that our schools are properly funded and supported.
I fully agree that there is definitely a lack of priorities. Some of the priorities that I think that we need to be ensuring are, like you mentioned, addressing that school violence. The best way for us to do that is by making sure we have those education workers in place. Our plan would hire back some of the 5,000 classroom educators that we've lost under the Ford government and close the $1,500 per student funding gap that's been left. We would also roll back the years of Liberal and Conservative budget cuts that have led to these large class sizes and have led to this lack of resources.
I'll just point out that under the Ford government, they did remove the class cap sizes. So my party, the Ontario Liberals, will reduce class sizes and cap it to ensure that every student has a chance at success and a focused education from their teachers and education workers that can actually focus on providing that meaningful education. We're going to get rid of the backlog in schools here in Ottawa. We're going to make sure that our schools are being properly funded and that they're safe, that the school repair backlog is taken care of.
It's really interesting that you say that. The most important thing, I think, is repairing that school backlog, but making sure that our school boards are properly supported so that they can actually meet their goals of ensuring that every student is successful and being taken care of. We need things like the school food program that the NDP has promised to bring in. We need to hire those education workers, and we need to work with them to ensure that we're not going to end up forcing teachers back to work unconstitutionally. And I see that I'm out of time.
Your rebuttal starts now.
The NDP plan is, without a doubt, the most robust plan of all the parties to rebuild our education system. It has $830 million over the next 10 years to rebuild our school system. That would mean less students in portables. That would mean less leaky gymnasiums. It would hire back the education workers that we've seen slowly leaving our system so that teachers can actually, or that parents can know that their teachers are taking care of their kids as they need to be.
Thank you so much, Max. Tyler, we know that recently Ottawa's Mayor Mark Sutcliffe asked both the provincial and the federal government to really step up in terms of more funding for the capital. Let's talk a little bit about the public transit system and LRT. What is your plan to help fund this essential transportation system for Ottawa?
Thank you, Sam. And this is a great question. This is something that I've been hearing at the doors. The Ontario Liberals will upload the LRT system. Doug Ford's Conservatives have been downloading so much onto municipalities that they are focused on making sure that we're funding an unreliable transit system. We're going to upload the LRT system, make sure that the province is paying for it, and protect the OC Transpo jobs. It will still remain under their control and with those unions. We're going to take on those financial pressures so that the City of Ottawa can focus on things like public safety, like education, like building more road infrastructure here.
Debate.
So I need to ask you about this plan to upload to Metrolinx. Metrolinx is, as many folks know, a Toronto-based Ontario government agency, but it's been taken over by lobbyists and by private contractors. They have multiple projects in Toronto that are over budget and years over schedule. I just can't see the reasoning in taking what should be a local responsibility and rather than just funding our communities so that they can have the transit they need, why we're pushing this to a private firm effectively in Toronto.
Well, that's the Conservatives' plan. The Ontario Liberals' plan has nothing to do with Metrolinx. We're going to upload the LRT. It's going to remain in the hands of OC Transpo and those union workers.
But how are you going to upload it if you're just saying that you're going to keep it the way it is? Why not just use the NDP plan of doing a 50-50 split on the provincial and municipal funding so that we can get the operations funding that we need so that the bus can show up on time when you need it, or that when the train's a little bit more busy, we don't cut the service that goes to Bell's Corners and make sure that folks can actually get to work and where they're trying to go.
We're going to take on this financial pressure from the city. This is because right now the Ontario Liberals will pay for that LRT upload, and that way it's going to be properly funded, and the city can focus on the things that matter here at home.
It's interesting that you're only focusing on the LRT upload. Transit here in Nepean particularly doesn't really rely too much on the LRT system in Ottawa. We rely a lot on buses for folks coming from Bell's Corners and from across Barrhaven. Fallowfield, many folks will have familiar stories of you're sitting there waiting for the bus, it takes an hour to show up. When the bus finally does show up, if it shows up, it's too full and you miss your bus and you're late to work. I'm not sure how uploading the LRT is going to do anything to help those folks out, whereas our plan will.
We're going to address all of that. People in Ottawa pay a ton in taxes, and we're tired of all of it going to cities like Toronto. It's about time that Ottawa got its fair share. We're going to address the entire public transit system. We're going to make sure that Ottawa is getting its fair share. And that way, like I said, the city can focus on the things that matter here.
Well, and I think one of the things that matters here that the city should be focusing on is this transit. The city knows what the transit needs are better than the province does, and we should just be providing the resources they need to build the transit system we deserve.
Your rebuttal starts now.
People in Ottawa pay a ton of taxes right now, and a lot of it is going to places like the City of Toronto. Instead of a fantasy tunnel that's going to be built under the 401, the Ontarians have a plan where we're actually going to address and allow Nepean to thrive. We're going to do things like getting the Barnsdale interchange finally done. We're going to expand roads like Prince of Wales. It's not just about the LRT, it's about making sure that we are investing in this growing community and that the road infrastructure follows with it.
Thank you so much. We know that many Ontarians face the challenge of having no family doctor. Our emergency rooms are bursting at the seams. We know the long wait times for things like MRIs. Max, talk to me a little bit about your plan for the healthcare system in this province.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you bring up the lack of family doctors. I happen to be one of the folks who is without a family doctor in Ottawa, joining 168,000 others who are also without a family doctor here. Addressing that shortage is the key pillar of the NDP plan. We would be hiring more than 3,500 doctors into community-based healthcare teams, so places like Bell's Corners and Barrhaven can actually have easy access to the resources that they need. We would provide funding to our hospitals to rebuild our ERs. Places like the Queensway Carleton, which is still waiting on provincial funding, would be a priority for me as an MPP and for our party. And we would also ensure that we have more residency spots across places like Ottawa and Carleton to make sure that we can home grow that workforce.
Thank you so much. Debate.
The Ford government have a 7-year record to run on with everything, but in terms of healthcare specifically, it is an abject failure. I'm a registered nurse in this community, and this is exactly what got me to run in this election. Far too many people don't have access to primary care here. 30,000 people in this very riding don't have a family doctor. It is my mission and passion as a nurse to make sure that people have access to the healthcare that they need in the community, investing in community health and things like prevention. It's making sure that we are retaining the current talented healthcare workers that we have, that we are bringing people back to the healthcare system that have left, that have gone to places like the U.S. that are trying to poach nurses and healthcare workers every single day. It's making sure that we're attracting and educating new talent and getting those internationally trained physicians, nurses, PSWs, all to get licensed and practice here safely.
If I could just interject quickly, the healthcare system is in part the shape it is because of years of mismanagement under the previous Liberal government. We saw hallway healthcare become the groundwork of what it has grown into under Ford's Conservatives under the Wynne government. We saw wages for healthcare workers continue to not rise at the rate they needed to before Ford came in and tried to entirely cap them. This is a problem that has been going on for a very long time, and we can't trust the Liberals to just say that they're going to fix it. I know that you certainly do come from a good place, but as a party as a whole, Bonnie Crombie has said that the Wynne government spent too much on some of the healthcare systems that we had.
I'm a nurse. I'm from this community and I care about this community. I'm trying to be a part of the solution here. I've had a personal hand in shaping the Ontario Liberals' healthcare platform, especially when it comes to healthcare workers and nurses. I'm proud of what we're running on. It's a real plan that's actually going to address the healthcare crisis that we're in today. The Ford government has completely failed when it comes to our healthcare system and the people of Ontario. We have real solutions, getting you a family doctor in the next 4 years, building health hubs here in Nepean, these buildings that can treat up to 10,000 patients. We need to increase access and change the way that people are experiencing healthcare. Our plan will tackle that, and you better believe I will be advocating for it every single day at the legislature for us.
Your rebuttal starts now.
The main reason why I'm getting into politics is because of healthcare. We need to make sure that people are kept healthy and at home and away from the hospitals. If we do that, we will be a healthier and happier society, and ultimately it will be better for our budget and the amount that we're spending on healthcare.
Thank you. We know that recently Algonquin College announced the closure of 37 programs, leaving many students without a local solution for their post-secondary education. How will you ensure the college system has adequate funding?
This question for okay. The cuts under the four Conservatives are having a real impact right here in Nepean. We just saw that Algonquin College is going to cut 37 programs come this fall. And that's unacceptable. The Ontario Liberals will properly fund post-secondary institutions, the colleges and universities, and we're going to help students and Ontarians get access to quality education that they need. We're going to eliminate the provincial interest on your OSAP, something that Ford brought back and we didn't have before. We're going to higher the income threshold to give you more time before you have to start paying back your loan.
Debate.
It's obvious that everyone should get a quality education in the field that they choose, and I agree that after 7 years of Ford's Conservatives, our universities and our colleges are at a breaking point. The courses we're losing at Algonquin are a massive and devastating loss. Part of the NDP plan is to ensure that we convert those loans into grants so that students aren't leaving with massive amounts of debt. Under Ford, we saw OSAP get cut by over 30% of the funding that was going to students. I was one of the students who experienced that. I have friends who had to leave their courses because those loans became too burdensome, and they're now living in debt because even with the lower amount they took by leaving, they simply can't pay for those programs. My question for you, Tyler, would be why are we choosing to force people to carry this debt rather than just converting it into grants?
I thank you for that question. As someone who went through having OSAP to get myself through my nursing education, I think it's okay that we want to take on a loan from OSAP so we can get that education. I was ready to work hard for that. I wasn't asking for bursaries. I wasn't asking for grants. I did benefit from the previous Ontario Liberal post-secondary program that we had when it came to OSAP. And when Doug Ford came in and cut hundreds of millions of dollars to OSAP, just like Max, I had people in my own nursing program that had to quit, that had to leave because they couldn't afford their tuition anymore. They couldn't pay their bills. I personally had thousands of dollars taken off my annual OSAP loan. That just wasn't enough. So having to work, part-time to full-time, in addition to being a full-time student nurse, precepting at the hospitals, it was tough. The Ontario Liberals know that, and we are going to support our students.
If I can just interject, I want to go back to something you said about you're willing and ready to work hard. It sounds like you're saying that folks who aren't willing to take on massive amounts of debt shouldn't be getting an education. The ONDP sees it quite differently. We should be making sure that we are increasing the base funding for all of our post-secondary so that everyone in Ontario can get a quality education from the institution and the program that they would like to take. We will reverse Ford's cuts to OSAP, and we will work with the institutions to review the funding formula to make sure that Ontario students can get into the programs that they deserve.
Rebuttal starts now.
We believe in supporting students. I'm not saying that people need to take on a massive amount of debt. That is something that we will address and do. But we need to be able to support people realistically to get into a post-secondary education. We have a massive spending problem in this province, and it needs to be spent on things that are actually going to help people, like getting people access to post-secondary education, like getting people access to primary care, like making sure that every student in this province has a meaningful and quality education.
Thank you so much. We know affordability, whether it comes to heat, electricity, food on the table, has been a very big challenge for families in Ontario. Max, talk to us about your plan, the NDP's plan for this affordability crisis in this province.
Absolutely. After 7 years of Doug Ford, life has never been more unaffordable for folks here in Ontario, and especially here in Nepean. I mean, in Barrhaven, we have a rent that is 26% higher on average than the rest of the country. We have grocery bills that are going through the roof, and a provincial government that is not interested in trying to address that rising cost. The ONDP recently announced our grocery rebate, which would be about $125 a month back into individuals' pockets to help pay for those groceries. We would cap rents and bring back in rent controls so that folks can actually get into the homes that they need and stay in the homes they need. And we would clamp down on anti-consumer practices like price gouging by grocery store giants and corporate landlords.
Thank you so much. Debate.
The Ontario Liberals have a real plan as to how we're going to address the cost of living crisis. Not just an insulting one-time $200 election bribe check that arrives to you on the eve of an election, but meaningful ongoing savings that will help you deal with the cost of living crisis that we're facing. Every single day at the doors here in Nepean, I hear about the cost of living. Ontario Liberals, we're going to cut your taxes. We're going to eliminate the HST on your home heating and hydro. These are ongoing meaningful savings that will consistently help you save money throughout the months and years to come.
I think that that's a well-intentioned idea, but the truth is that folks need help on the ground now. We need to make sure that people can afford their rents. I've lived paycheck to paycheck and seen just how stressful and damaging not knowing if you're going to make rent is. I've skipped meals to pay bills. The ONDP is going to get rid of junk fees, from paying for parking at the hospital to the junk fees on your credit or on your phone bills. We're going to make sure that you can pay for your groceries with our monthly grocery rebate, and we're going to bring rent down so that you can afford to live where you want to live. We'll build supportive and affordable housing that is deeply and permanently affordable so that you and your family can find places to live. I had to move back in with my parents after I went to college, simply because rent had gone up, and that was more than 8 years ago. Kids today have it much, much worse than I did. We need to make sure that we are building the housing that folks need to deal with affordability. We need to make sure that they can get the health care they need so that they can afford to take time off of work. We need to make sure that the systems in place around each person in this province are doing everything they can to support that person, whether it's at the grocery store, at the hospital, at school, or trying to catch the bus.
One of the first things that the Ford government did when they came into power in 2018 was they got rid of rent control. This has helped balloon rent prices throughout Ontario and here in Ottawa. I'm a renter. Owning a house seems like a dream at this point. The Ontario Liberals have a serious plan as to how we're going to create attainable housing for people like myself, young people, and those renters that are looking to get equity into the housing market. We're going to also help small businesses. We're going to cut your taxes by 50% because small businesses, everyone says they're the backbone of this province, and we are going to help you with that.
Thank you. Rebuttal.
The truth is that life is more expensive than it's ever been. Ford has made life entirely unaffordable for everyone in this province, except for, of course, his rich investor friends. The Ontario NDP has a plan to make everything in your life more affordable, or at least more accessible. We'll make it so you can get on the bus. We'll make it so that you can afford your rent or pay your mortgage. We'll make it so that you can pay for your groceries.
Thank you so much. We have time for one question, 1 minute each. What would you do for people with disabilities in this province who are struggling so much with ODSP and the lack of resources?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. This is something that I have been very passionate about and vocal about for years now. It's unacceptable that people are forced into legislative poverty because of a disability that's outside their control. It's up to us to lift each other up and make sure that everyone is fully supported. I have a friend who is paraplegic and at home, and he has to pay for his rent. He has to pay for private healthcare services because the resources are not there. Not only will the Ontario Liberals double ODSP, we're the first party to come out of the gate with that, but we will ensure that those resources and support in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, are there to help them. They shouldn't have to be paying out of pocket to have a private PSW coming over to their house to help care for them. We should have that already. And our plan to address that in our healthcare system, bringing a bunch of new talent and experts into the field, especially in the community, is my top priority and the Ontario Liberals' top priority.
Thank you so much. Max, your time starts now.
As I said, my dad is a person living with a disability, and I actually used to work very closely on the disability file as a legislative assistant. I've seen firsthand the legislative poverty that's happening to folks across this province. What we need is to double ODSP, yes, but many Liberal candidates have already come out saying that maybe they're going to walk that back a bit. What we need is a government that's going to stick by people with disabilities and make sure that they have access to the support services that they need, that they have an adequate income in line with their human rights commitments under the UN CRPD, and that we have the other services in our healthcare system and in our support worker system in place to make sure that they get what they need. After 7 years of Doug Ford, people with disabilities are in serious trouble. We have millions living under the poverty line here in the province, and without at least doubling ODSP and Ontario Works, we won't see any positive change anytime soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our candidates today. Max Blair and Tyler Watt joining us today for the debate regarding Nepean, the riding of Nepean. We know the Ontario election is important for many people. We'd like closing statements from each of these gentlemen now. We're going to start with Tyler Watt.
Thank you for that. This is a critical election. I am so honored to be running in this again. Didn't expect to be doing it this soon, but it's okay. We have an opportunity right now to send a champion for Nepean to Queen's Park. I care about this community. I was born and raised here, and I've seen how much it has grown and expanded over the last few decades. Ottawa has not been given its proper investments from the Ford government. It is time to get someone at Queen's Park who knows this riding, who will listen to every single person in this riding and advocate for what matters most. If I'm successful, I know that it is an honor and a privilege to be an MPP, especially with the resources and knowledge that comes with it. And it is my promise to you that no matter who you voted for, who you are, my door will always be open. I'm here to listen to you and advocate for what matters most to people in Nepean at Queen's Park.
Max, your time starts now.
After 7 long years of Doug Ford and years of Liberal mismanagement before them, life is as tough as ever here in Nepean and across the province. Ford called this election to hide from his government's terrible record. We have thousands without a family doctor, rent is out of control, and life is simply too expensive. Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP have the plan that will put you first and invest in what matters, like our public health care, homes that are permanently and deeply affordable, and fixing our crumbling school system and giving people with disabilities the supports that they need. On February 27th, I urge you to vote NDP. You deserve more than the status quo in red or the status quo in blue. You deserve to vote for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those closing statements, and thank you again to our candidates for joining us today. A reminder, although Tyler Watt and Max Blair joined us today, we did invite all candidates. These are the 2 candidates that chose to join us today. We know that there are a number of issues that are so important for Ontarians. This election is key, whether it be healthcare, the school system, crumbling infrastructure. There are many, many issues that Ontarians are facing. I hope you vote. Get out there and vote. Advanced polls are coming up, of course. Check your electionsontario.ca for all of those details. And of course, the big day, February 27th. Get out and vote, everyone. I'm Sam LaPratte. You're invited to get to know Alex Lewis, a candidate running in the riding of Nepean in this upcoming Ontario election.
My name is Alex Lewis, and I'm proud to be your Ontario Progressive Conservative candidate for Nepean. Firstly, thank you to Rogers for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. For nearly a decade, I've served as a police officer, protecting our families and keeping our streets safe. I know what it means to step up when our community needs it most. I've seen the challenges we face, whether it's keeping our neighborhoods safe or supporting those working hard to get ahead. I believe that if serving the community is below you, then leadership is beyond you. I also had the privilege of standing shoulder to shoulder with our local businesses as the executive director of the Bells Corners BIA. I know how hard our small business owners work every day. They are the backbone of our local economy, and they deserve a government that works just as hard for them. But today, our businesses face a whole new set of challenges. The threat of tariffs from President Donald Trump's administration in the United States could put pressure on our local economy. We need a strong, stable government that will stand up for Ontario and fight to protect jobs and trade. The Ontario PC Party under Doug Ford is that government. We're cutting red tape, keeping taxes low, and building a resilient economy right here in Nepean. We will stand up for our businesses to ensure that they can weather any storm. Together, we can keep Nepean growing, thriving, and safe. On Election Day, I ask for your support. Let's get it done. Thank you.